You know what's wild? We're barely into spring training and things are already getting spicy. The Blue Jays just dropped an 8-7 heartbreaker to the Miami Marlins, and honestly, there's a lot more to unpack here than just a loss in February. Let me start with Kevin Gausman because that's really where this story begins. This man walked out to the mound for his first spring outing and looked like it was October. 3 strikeouts in 1 inning of work. He opens up by punching out Otto Lopez. Then he gives up a single to Kyle Stowers and walks Esteury Ruiz, puts himself in a little bit of a jam, but then what does he do? He reaches back and fans both Liam Hicks and Owen Casey to get out of it clean. That is the Gausman we need to see this season. And before anyone tries to act like last year was some kind of down year for him, let me remind you of something. This guy went 2-3 with a 2.93 ERA in the postseason. Toronto made it all the way to Game 7 of the World Series, and Gausman was one of the main reasons they got there. He was dealing when it mattered most. So when people want to look at his regular season numbers, 10-11, 3.59 ERA, and act like he underperformed, you have to put that in context. The man shows up when the lights get bright, and that first spring inning? That was a reminder. Now the game itself. The Blue Jays actually looked really good early on, and that's the part that makes the final score sting a little. Alejandro Kirk gets things going in the bottom of the first with a 2-run double. Kirk, man, he doesn't get enough credit sometimes. He's one of the most reliable catchers in the American League, and he sets the tone right away, which is exactly what you want from your veteran guys in spring training. Then Tyler Rogers comes in and throws a perfect second inning with 2 strikeouts. Clean, efficient, exactly what you want from your bullpen arms early in camp, and then the Blue Jays just kept piling it on. The second inning turns into a 3-run explosion. Andrés Giménez goes deep for a solo shot, and that's a name people need to be paying attention to this year. Giménez was brought in to solidify that middle infield, and he's already showing what he can do with the bat. Then Vladimir Guerrero Jr. comes up and slaps an RBI single, because that's just what Vladdy does. He makes it look so easy it's almost unfair. And then he ends up scoring on an Addison Barger groundout. So just like that, it's a big lead and the Jays are rolling. The big moment, though, the one that had people buzzing, was Kazuma Okamoto in the 4th inning. 2-run double, pushes it to 7-2, and the crowd is feeling it. Okamoto is one of Toronto's major offseason additions, and there's genuine excitement around what he can bring to this lineup. For him to come out in his first spring action and immediately contribute in a meaningful way, that matters. That's not just a stat, that's a confidence builder for the whole organization. When you spend that kind of money and attention bringing in a player, you want to see them hit the ground running, and so far, so good. But here's where it gets interesting, and honestly, here's where you can learn something about baseball, even in spring training. Miami wasn't done. Not even close. The Marlins come back with 6 runs over the final 3 innings and completely flip the energy of this game. An RBI single from Jay Beshears starts chipping away at the lead. Then Chase Jaworski steps up and absolutely crushes a 3-run triple that cuts it to 7-6 going into the 9th. The whole lead, all that comfortable cushion Toronto built, nearly evaporated in a matter of innings. And then in the 9th, Bennett Hostetler hits an RBI single and then comes around to score on a force-out. Just like that, it's 8-7 Miami. Game over. Now look, I'm not going to sit here and panic about a spring training loss. Nobody should. These games don't count in the standings. Players are working on stuff, arms are being stretched out, guys are getting their timing at the plate. That's the whole point of spring training. But what I will say is that the bullpen situation in those final innings is worth monitoring. Giving up 6 runs late is the kind of thing you want to figure out before April, not in the middle of a pennant race. Toronto right now sits at 1-4-1 through the early part of spring, and again, that record means nothing. But the individual performances, the trends, the things you see in how players are moving and competing, that stuff matters. And there's actually a lot of encouraging things to pull from this game, despite the final score. Gausman looks locked in. That's probably the biggest takeaway. A guy coming off a World Series run, arm feels good, stuff is sharp, 3 strikeouts in 1 inning in his first outing of the spring. That's what you want. the Blue Jays rotation has a chance to be genuinely special this year if everyone stays healthy, and Gausman being dialed in from day one is a great sign. The offense showed real depth too. Kirk, Giménez, Vladimir, Okamoto, you've got contributions from all over the lineup. That's not a coincidence. That's roster construction working the way it's supposed to. When you can get production from multiple spots in the order, it makes you so much harder to game plan against. Pitchers can't just try to work around one guy because there's another dangerous bat right behind him. Okamoto's spring debut is going to be a storyline worth following all through February and March. There's a lot of expectations on him, and he handled his first test well. I want to see how he adjusts as pitchers start to figure him out, because that's the real test for any new player coming into a league. The first look is one thing. What happens when they start trying to exploit weaknesses? That's where you find out what someone is really made of. And Andrés Giménez hitting a home run in spring training might not seem like a big deal, but for a guy whose role is going to be so important to how this team functions defensively and in the lineup, seeing him comfortable and confident right away is encouraging. The Blue Jays needed someone who could stabilize that part of the field and contribute offensively, and early returns are pointing in the right direction. Next up for Toronto is the Tampa Bay Rays on Friday in Port Charlotte. Another good test, another opportunity to see different pieces of the roster in game action. I'm curious to see who gets the start on the mound, what the lineup looks like, whether some of the younger guys get extended looks. Spring training is always this weird balance between reading too much into things and not reading enough. Every year, people either overreact to a rough spring and doom a team before the season starts, or they dismiss red flags that end up being real problems. The truth is usually somewhere in the middle. You're watching for trends, for health, for confidence, for the little things that tell you a team is clicking or that something might be off. Right now, with the Blue Jays, the vibe feels good. They know they can compete. They went to Game 7 of the World Series last year. That experience doesn't just disappear, it lives in this roster. Every player on that team knows what it feels like to be in a dogfight in October, and that's an advantage you genuinely cannot put a number on. The loss to Miami stings a little because of how comfortable that lead was, but honestly, if you told any Blue Jays fan before the game that Gausman would look sharp, the offense would put up 7 runs, and Okamoto would make an impact on his spring debut, they'd take that overall picture without hesitation. Friday against Tampa Bay. Let's see what happens. This spring is just getting started.